Welcome to Annapolis Mosaics. Our program spotlights people in our community who are involved in activities designed to promote good human relations. I am Michael Keller, the chair of the Annapolis Human Relations Commission and your host. The commission is a city board that seeks to promote equal opportunity and to eliminate discrimination. My guests today are Misty Bruce, who is the executive director of the Southern Maryland chapter of the American Red Cross, and Tessa Lovro, who is is responsible for disaster relief for the region in the same organization, the American Red Cross. Welcome, Missy and Tessa, to Annapolis Mosaics.
Thank you for having us.
Well, many people would be surprised to learn that the American Red Cross dates back to 1905. Could you share some of the major highlights of the organization's history?
So I'll jump in. So 1905 is the correct date of when we got our first congressional charter. However, the Red Cross kind of began before that. So during the Civil War, an amazing person named Clara Barton realized that there was a gap to fill, that there were service members serving on both sides of the line that needed assistance. They needed help with getting final letters home to family members, and she was also responsible for helping to recruit a whole corps of nurses to help render aid to those folks. And she really became a first living example here in America of one of our founding principles, which is neutrality. It doesn't matter to us what side you serve on, where you're from, or what you believe in. We want to offer our services to you.
I think that the Red Cross has, been active throughout the 20th century too, in terms of providing support and help. The American Red Cross provides, emergency disaster relief to local families, primarily, I think, in terms of home fires, which I think people would not necessarily connect with the American Red Cross. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. The Red Cross overall responds to over 50,000 home fires a year. And in the Southern Maryland chapter alone, we respond to a little over 20 fire events every year. So that's approximately one every 3 days, which is significant. Most people don't think it's ever going to happen to them. And that's one of the reasons why our disaster team, focuses a lot on teaching communities preparedness, because we'd rather see people on the front end and help them prepare for those disasters than see them on the back end and when they're dealing with their most difficult times in their life.
And you've got a formal home fires campaign, do you not?
We do. The initiative started about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And the initiative was to reduce home fire fatalities. And so how we do that is we go out into our high-risk communities and we talk to the families about how you prepare your home to be more safe for home fires. We talk about evacuation plans. We want to make sure that people not only create the evacuation plan, but also practice it, so it becomes second nature. And so that, not even 20 years ago, furniture was made really well. And so the average person might have had 20 minutes to get out of their home. But today, there are fibers that are made with the furniture goes up in smoke, and you might have only 2 minutes to get out of your home. 2 minutes in the middle of the night, most people can't even open their eyes and recognize where they are, much less know. So we really want people to practice that evacuation plan, to get out of their homes, to save their lives. And so far, across the country, Red Cross has about 642 lives saved as a result of our program, which we've installed more than 2 million alarms across the country.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because many people have smoke detectors in their homes or carbon monoxide detectors in their homes, but the batteries go dead, and the things beep in the middle of the night, and people sometimes just dismantle it, and they simply don't use it. I think it's important for people to understand the importance of keeping those instruments viable and active in their homes. What do you do to persuade people on that? Because that can be a sticky point for people. People say, "I just don't like those things. They cause a lot of annoyance."
I really like to pull at people's heartstrings.
Yeah.
One of the stories I always tell folks is that one of the reasons I realized how important this was to have an evacuation plan was I responded to a fire, and I got there very early, and the fire department was just arriving and getting things set up. And as I approached, the mother was screaming from the ground up to the second-story window, and she was screaming for her 3 children to jump from the window, and they wouldn't. And all 3 children perished in the fire. And it was at that point when I realized that my own, in my mind, our evacuation plan is that my boys would get out on the roof and they would jump down to the ground. And that was such an awakening for me that I needed to not have that plan in my head, that I had to put it down on paper. And so really pulling at people's heartstrings like that to say, if you really love your family, maybe not watching that movie and taking the time to create an evacuation plan or practicing it really is an important thing to do. And not only that, but people love their pets. And so many times in a home fire, people don't have a plan to who's gonna, do you keep your pets in your bedroom at night so that you can grab them and go and things like that. So we really try to walk through that with folks, and that is something that I haven't run into one person that says is not important to them. So that's really where we try to go with that conversation. And just one more point on the smoke alarms is that a lot of people sleep through the smoke alarms. So if you don't test your family, and by doing an evacuation drill in the middle of the night, you don't know if people are going to sleep through those alarms. So it's really important for families to practice the plan that they create.
2 minutes. I think most people would not guess that the amount of time that they would have would be so short. Most people would think that you've got several minutes to leave. 2 minutes is hardly any time at all.
2 minutes is hardly at any time at all. In fact, they've done numerous studies that you can Google and watch videos of families that thought they were prepared, and then when they were tested, it took 15 to 20 minutes to actually get to a safe spot. So if your plan is in your mind, that is not a good plan. And so you really need to practice it with your family.
Right. The American Red Cross also offers emotional and financial support to the military, their families, and to veterans. It's my understanding that this is a very important part of the mission of the American Red Cross, and one that I think many people would just not realize. But could you tell us a little bit about what the American Red Cross does in that area?
Sure. So the American Red Cross works with the service member from the day they enlist all the way through the life of the veteran. And we do that in different stages. So upon enlistment, some of the things that we offer are briefs to family members to make sure that they understand how to relay emergency communications to their family. We also support military spouses with job training opportunities such as a dental assistant program, a medical assistant program. We offer them volunteer opportunities to help fill those gaps in resumes that so many military spouses struggle with. In all lines of service, they don't have to serve and service the armed forces. Many of our military spouses resonate with disaster cycle services because it's a call to serve a mission. Then we also provide them with resilience training. The Red Cross has its own resilience program, and we talk to them about coping skills, how to cope with the deployments or reintegrating someone back into the household who's been gone for 9 months to a year. Because, you know, that service member is going to come home and maybe naturally expect that things will pick up exactly where they left off, and that's not always the reality. So the Red Cross has developed a program to help support all of those different types of transitions that those families may go through. We also have a crisis intervention program where service members can call upon the Red Cross to help intervene with suicides and things of that nature. We served in armed conflict areas. Service of the Armed Forces personnel serve overseas right alongside those service members who are fighting those wars. And then for the veterans, we offer transition assistance. Some of that is in the form of community resources. We make sure that we get them partnered with the people who can help them, depending on what phase of the transition they're in. We support veterans in Veterans Treatment Court to make sure that their rights are lobbied for, in a sense to make sure that we're there to offer them, once again, those resources, volunteer opportunities that maybe fill that gap. And we also offer financial assistance. We kind of serve as a liaison between the military aid societies and our service members, so that when unexpected things happen, they have someone that they know that they can fall back on. But the most important thing that I think we do is 24/7, 365 days a year, you have staff members and volunteers answering the call of our service members, their families, and veterans, no matter what that need is, trying to get them to whoever they need to get to resolve all of those issues. So they know that the Red Cross is there 24/7.
The American Red Cross also offers life-saving courses and training services. What do these constitute, and who is eligible to take them, and how do you reach people and inform people that they exist?
So we'll tag team that if you want to. So one of the things I would speak to are some of the less common things that the Red Cross, maybe people don't know we do. We have active shooter training classes, for example, on the far end of the spectrum, all the way down to CPR first aid, hands only, that can be taught to children. So we offer a lot of different classes and courses that can help prepare an organization or an individual in almost every scenario you can think of. Lifeguarding, almost every scenario you can think of where a human life could be saved, we offer a training course in that. And as far as who can take them, anyone can take our courses.
Okay.
Yeah, anyone. What would you add to that?
I would agree. Red Cross has lines of service and training services, has the specific CPR classes and babysitting and lifeguarding and all of those, swimming classes. But again, we have other classes, and in disaster, one of the things that our volunteers need to do is they need to make sure that they're educated and they know how to serve their communities that they live in. And so our volunteers, I probably have over 200 classes that Red Cross has created and has taught. But most of our volunteers, the minimum that I know that any of our disaster volunteers take is approximately 20 classes. So there's a lot of education that occurs, and the reason that we do it is because we want to make sure that our communities are safe.
Yeah.
The Red Cross also engages in the collection and distribution of blood and blood products.
Yes.
What's that about?
So other than people, I would say the biggest thing that the Red Cross brings to the table anywhere is life-saving blood. So I can speak to what we did in Anne Arundel County last fiscal year. We collected, we had 12,000 blood donors come out and support the need for blood in your community. And each one of those donations has the potential to save 3 lives. And that's, not truly complicated math, but so that's 36,000 potential people that Anne Arundel County citizens and neighbors contributed to saving by donating through the American Red Cross. our blood testing standards are top in the industry. We put that blood through so many tests to make sure that the product that we are delivering to the community is a top-notch quality product. And we work all lines of service to support Biomed's efforts to make sure that the community has the blood that we need. I will say that it seems like there are times when we fall short of the donations that we need, and we would encourage everyone to continue to go to redcross.org and find a blood donation site, because it seems, especially with the holidays coming, we always kind of run short during the holidays season. So thanks for that opportunity to plug going to redcross.org and becoming a blood donor if you haven't done so before, because we always need your donation.
And just to add on that, you know, all of our lines of service work really closely together. So even service to the armed forces, you know, disaster clients a lot of times are military related veterans and others. And so we work together to make sure that we're serving our clients the best way that we can. So disaster might provide its services and SAF might provide its services. But as it regards to blood, you know, nowadays active shooter events are becoming more and more across the country, and even in our own region, and the Capital Gazette, you know, being one of them. And each time we have one of those events, people want to give blood. And the coordination between our blood unit and disaster services during those type of events is critical, because the community wants to serve, and we need the blood. And so, like Misty said, you know, if you're able to give blood, please do, because there's a small percentage of actually a population that actually gives. And in addition to redcross.org, people can download an app on their phone, which makes it super easy to schedule an appointment.
For sure. Chances are we have an app for that.
We do.
We have an app for so many things. Yes. We try to be tech savvy.
The American Red Cross also has an international focus, does it not?
Yeah.
I mean, you made reference to it earlier in terms of serving military personnel, sometimes right on the battlefield itself. But I think there's other types of interactions that you have in the international sphere. Could you elaborate a little bit about that?
Sure. So under Service to the Armed Forces falls a piece of that international services, and it focuses largely on international humanitarian law. We're trying to do our part with educating, especially youths, up-and-coming humanitarians, on what it means to be a humanitarian. And one of those is acknowledging that it's a diverse universe and we don't all live the same, and we want people to understand what it means to treat all life with respect, and what it means to treat, you know, especially those folks who maybe live in war-torn countries with dignity. And so under that program, one of the things that we provide on that side of the fence is called Restoring Family Links, and we work to help make sure that families can be reunified and reconnected when they've had to be separated internationally because of war. There is a disaster piece to that. There's a measles initiative where we go into other countries and vaccinate for measles, and we work with Red Crosses internationally, globally. The American Red Cross does, to ensure those initiatives are met.
International Services works closely too with a lot of the disaster operations, just because Misty said, you know, one of our fundamental principles is impartiality, and we help everyone. And sometimes the best experts come from our partners in international services. And so we invite them to the table to make sure that we're serving our populations the best way that we can, you know, as they bring additional resources to the table. So I can't tell you, even from the last hurricane seasons, how many times we've partnered with our international services friends.
And you also have, for example, I think relationships anyway with organizations like Red Crescent.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that, or anything that you may know about that?
Yeah.
So one of our, again, another fundamental principles is universality. And that means that all Red Crosses across the globe work together. And so examples are, sometimes in the news you'll hear that an event happens in another country, whether it's a tsunami or something else. Red Cross will fundraise and make sure that we provide a certain amount of designated dollars, and 100% of those dollars goes to that country to help them serve their populations during those times of disaster. So that's one way the Red Cross works together across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
Hurricane Dorian is the most recent example I can think of. There in the Bahamas. The Bahamas has its own Red Cross, but here the American Red Cross supported with sending people or goods or financial donations.
Well, I always seem to see the American Red Cross mentioned after there's been a hurricane or tornado or tsunami, as you mentioned. They're right at the top of the organizations that are mentioned. So I think that gives a lot of really good publicity for your organization. And I'm sure that's been planned out. I'm sure you've done a lot of work in terms of acquainting the media and others about the work that the American Red Cross is doing in terms of disaster relief and responding to these catastrophic national natural disasters that have been evidenced both in the United States as well as around the world.
Yeah, and we have, like Misty said, a federal charter that says that we have to respond. And so one of the things that we help support is, for disaster-wise, is the emergency support function number 6, which is for mass care, and emergency support function number 8, which goes along with health services, mental health, and those types of services. So we work very closely with FEMA and Human Services, and we have actual deliverables that we have to deliver on when there's time of response. Additionally, what many people don't understand is when there's these large incidents like Dorian or Hurricane Florence, things like that, the Red Cross budgets a certain amount of money for long-term recovery. And when it comes to long-term recovery, we actually help and provide grants to other organizations. Red Cross can't do everything alone, and we realize that. We have a certain thing that we come to the table with, but it's a whole community that needs to respond. And so we're able to provide financial assistance to some of the other organizations in a community to make sure that they are recovering.
You mentioned earlier, made reference to earlier, the use of volunteers. What role do volunteers play in the American Red Cross?
The largest role possible.
Well, let's hear
The largest role possible.
Well, let's hear about that.
So-
because you're going to have people out who's listening to the show today who might very well be interested in volunteering with you.
I would love to meet them. So I will say from Service to Armed Forces, for example, we'll talk specific lines of service first. We have 184 volunteers, and those volunteers did 19,000 hours last year to support the activities in the region. We have 2 paid staff members that work with those 184 volunteers. And most of the time, 99% of the time, those volunteers are leading that effort to leave that footprint in the community. And the 19,000 hours speaks to the amount of work, the commitment that they have to making sure that those service members are taken care of.
Well, what kind of roles do volunteers play? I mean, what do they do?
So, for example, gosh, there's so many. So I'll talk about Service to Armed Forces, SAF. So we have caseworkers, those folks who answer that call. We have facilitators who go out and teach the resiliency classes. We have briefers. We have people who come in and help pack comfort kits or hygiene kits and then deliver those to our veteran homes and hospitals. We have people who run coffee carts and courtesy carts. But across every line of service, you're going to find volunteers that do everything and more sometimes than a paid staff member is capable of. We have community volunteer leaders who go out and do TV interviews just like this. They speak to the media, elected officials, things of that nature. They really are, they have such cross-cutting skills. I think there's nothing they can't do.
Right.
Tessa?
Yeah, in disaster cycle services, I think most people are surprised that our volunteers don't come in generally and assemble things.
Right.
Our volunteers are leading our programs. They're making financial decisions. I have a volunteer partner, for instance, and she can do anything that I do. So in my absence, she can make the decisions. It's imperative because we can't serve our populations without our volunteers. We just don't have the bandwidth with our own staff to be able to do that. So we have to empower them. That's why we provide the training. That's why we try to find the, different people that want to do different things. So for instance, we have somebody that manages all of our financial instruments. They come from a finance background. So people that have skill sets that want to utilize them, we're able to put them to work to do whatever it is that they want to do.
Do you have any stories that you would like to share with our viewers that illustrate the way in which the American Red Cross has helped people, especially those who reside in Annapolis or Anne Arundel County?
I do. So, I think most people around here know about the Capitol Gazette shooting that occurred. What some people might not have known is Wendy Winters was a blood services volunteer with the American Red Cross. And one of the things that was incredibly touching to me is that Wendy's family, her children, really were supportive of the American Red Cross. And as a result of that, they have made an effort to continue blood drives in her honor, which they have overproduced what their goals have been for those. But the really touching was at her memorial service, and sitting there and us being just overwhelmed with everything that she has done for our organization. But I think the gratitude that her family had for us, that was just overwhelming for me because I didn't do anything, right? Our teams were there to support the crowds. We brought some disaster mental health workers and spiritual care workers for that, and we canteened, but we didn't do anything. It was people like Wendy who make a difference in the communities that they serve. That is overwhelming to your heart to hear those kind of stories.
I'm sure that many of our viewers were very interested in contacting the American Red Cross and learning more about you. How can they get in touch with you? Do you have a phone number or email or website?
We have all of those.
Okay.
So here locally, you will find me at the Southern Maryland chapter, which is located on 80 West Street here in Annapolis. You can go to our website, redcross.org/GCR, and search there and find your executive director no matter where you sit. You can also search for your local chapter. Tessa's on that website, so if you have an interest in disaster specifically, you can do that. And then all of the phone numbers for your executive directors and leadership team, such as Tessa, the regional disaster officer, are on there as well. And you can hit volunteer and roll the dice, take your chances as an opportunity, and kind of look through the hundreds upon hundreds of positions. And a screener will reach out to you and ask you some questions and plug you in somewhere that they think that you have a passion, and then someone else will reach out and welcome you to the team.
Thank you for viewing our program today, and please join us again on Annapolis Mosaics. If you would like to have more information about the Annapolis Human Relations Commission, you can contact us at 410-263-7998 or by email at hrcommission@annapolis.gov. Or check out our page at the City of Annapolis website. Go to www.annapolis.gov. Click on the city government icon, then boards and commissions, and you can scroll down to the Human Relations Commission page. And always remember the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "We have flown the air like birds and swum the seas like fishes, but have yet to learn the simple act of walking the earth as brothers and sisters."